Congressman Devin Nunes of California is chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. Mr. Chairman, thanks for being here. I heard you talk about this and what you've said. I kind of want to just button it up. Where are you right now? What do you know? What do you not know?
Well, we just signed a scoping document with the Democrats as to what we're going to look at involving the Russian investigation. Mr. Schiff and I, the ranking Democrat, have received briefings from high-ranking IC officials. We expect to brief our full committee tomorrow and probably also next week, get briefings from the IC. But I always take people back to the House Intelligence Committee has long had an investigation into Russia. And in fact, a year ago, I went out and called the failure to understand Putin's plans and intentions the largest failure since 9/11, the largest intelligence failure since 9/11, and the last administration didn't do anything about it.
Speaker Ryan pointed to the report done by former DNI Clapper and former CIA Director Brennan that was handed over and briefed about this very topic, and that there was not an indication of collusion, collaboration, or communication beyond Michael Flynn. Can you go beyond that?
That still is the case from the briefing. So we've had briefings since then, and that still is the case. We will see if we get new evidence this week or next week. But in terms of what really got this going is 3 American names were in a New York Times story about 2 weeks ago. And that's what started this going, is to, are you going to bring in these Americans to testify? And what I said was, no, absolutely not. We're not going to bring American citizens in just because they show up in a New York Times story, or any other story for that matter, if we don't have any evidence. And all of a sudden, everybody on the left got excited about that. But, you know, I think I want to caution people that we should not be bringing in American citizens if we don't have any evidence to bring them in on. And I've said this really smells of McCarthyism.
So Congressman Schiff says he needs cooperation from the FBI and needs to know what they're chasing down. Do you feel like you have that?
Well, I think we do, but Mr. Schiff and I are holding the FBI accountable. They have a lot of answers that we've that there are questions that we've asked that they owe us answers to, and we'll begin to get those tomorrow.
Okay. We will follow this investigation, obviously, the House and the Senate looking into it. I want to turn to another intelligence issue that you talked about numerous times, and that is the declassification of these documents that were captured at the bin Laden raid. Still, we don't have the treasure trove that has been there for years.
Yeah, well, it's worse than that. On January 19th, the DNI sent out a report that said that they had met the law, and that was all the documents that they were going to release, which is totally unacceptable. So there are thousands and thousands of documents that are about what bin Laden knew, when he knew it, what he was doing with al-Qaeda. And why is this important? Because we need to understand our enemy. And a lot of people forget this, but ISIS is an outgrowth of al-Qaeda. ISIS leaders were al-Qaeda and Iraq leaders. And so for the intelligence community to continue to keep these from important people like historians, like the Congress, like the American public, is totally unacceptable. And so I'm hoping that President Trump will get these documents out immediately, because the longer these stay hidden, the less we know about our enemy.
And he can do that quickly, can't he?
He should be able to do it quickly. And you know, you heard the president last night. He is finally calling an enemy for what they are, which are their radical Islamic terrorists. And we need to understand what's behind radical Islamic terrorism. And to know that, we need to know what their leader was up to for the 5-6 years he was in hiding.
And finally, speaking about the president, the speech last night, I'd like to get your thoughts. You've been working specifically on tax reform as well and health care, but your thoughts overall and pushing those big things across the finish line in Congress.
Well, what I look for is somebody who's new in politics as you look for growth. And what I've seen is the president's working very, very hard. Every day he gets more and more up to speed on the important policy issues. So if you go back to right after the election, he had a lot of things that he wanted to do. Now he's very focused. He's very focused on telling the Congress, look, we've got to get health care done, we've got to get Obamacare repealed and replaced. He was very specific on that last night. And second, he talked about specifics with tax reform. And so, the key to tax reform is going to be to make sure that the administration knows that we, for 10 years, a decade really, have looked at every way to use the existing tax code the way it is and try to tinker with it, cut the rates a little bit. We can't get there without blowing a hole in the deficit. This is why what we're trying to do is fundamental reform, and that's the bill that Chairman Brady's working on along with Paul Ryan. We've worked on this for a long time. This is the first chance we've ever had to truly blow up the tax code to where we would to have a cash flow system where we'd have rates of 25% and 20%, and people could write off expenses immediately. This is a much-needed policy change, and the President has talked big, and he can help us make this happen.
And we heard Neil Cavuto with the Treasury Secretary saying they have confidence that they're going to get it done and signed in August. You buy that?
The sooner we can get it done, the better.
But, I mean, do you think it can?
Well, in terms of this is going to be the challenge. We've been working on this for a long time at the Ways and Means Committee, so we have an understanding of tax policy, and we know kind of what the different plans are and why the other plans don't work. The challenge will be to get the White House staff up to speed on this, why we need to do it this way, and then it will be to get the Senate, because in the Senate, as you know, we only have 52 votes, so we're going to have to convince all the senators that this is the direction that we need to go. And what I would say is if they're not going to do this plan, then they have to tell us what plan they want to use.
By August, I'm saying. Yes?
I'm hopeful, yeah. A lot of education has to occur, which is part of the reason why I'm coming on your show and talking about tax reform.
Okay, talked about a lot of things. Nunes, thank you very much.
My pleasure.